Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just let the numbers keep totting up as you come through the door. I hope you're all okay. I hope you've had a nice day so far today. The weather seems to be brilliant at the moment, which is good, keeping our spirits lifted. So as you start to come in, fabulous. Hi, Kate. Kate says hello. When we're in the chat box, guys, just to remind you, if you'd like to send a message to all, you can click on either the little arrow that says all panelists or everyone or specific people. So make sure you've got everyone on there if you'd like to say hello, which we're always very welcoming of, so we know you're there. Right. And as the numbers start to come down and as you slow up, I'll pop Panikos's GoFundMe link in the chat section, guys, so that you can post a donation if you so wish to. So it's just here. Which you should see now in your chat section. So I think we're ready and rocking. So just to remind you guys, if you would like to ask Panikos a question, please do. You're more than welcome to. If you pop it into the Q&A section, then we can keep an eye on it and process it properly for you. But ask away at any time. I'll be jumping in and asking the questions so Panikos can keep on going with his flow of work. So yes, thank you everyone for being here. Over to you, Panikos.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm in my studio. I just duck out of the way. Look, soft boxes and stuff. So welcome along. I'm just going to go over a couple of things that we covered last week, just to put as a bit of a foundation. Thank you to those who have contributed with their photos. So what I'll do, I'll pop straight over into Photoshop, and we'll start off with the pictures that we were sent. I have got some of my own photos as well, but we'll only come to those if I absolutely need to. So this is a picture from Gillian Summerer. Thank you very, very much for sending the picture through. It's lovely. Really nicely exposed shot, nice expression. You know, pretty girl always helps. Oops, today's it. I am using a Wacom today, but I've got everything on 2 levels, so I might get a little bit confused. Now, just as a reminder, for those that, that came along last week, I sent those that wanted an action for dodging and burning, which I call lighten and darken. Now, I am going to modify it a little bit because I know it works on a background layer, but I can modify it so that it works on top of whatever layers you had before. Otherwise, it tends to get a little bit confused. So I might tweak it, and then those who had it before, I'll send it again. And those who haven't had it, please get in touch with me, and I'll try and send you the modified one. I will also include a skin softening action, which I'll go over with you today, as well as hopefully we'll have time to go into frequency separation. Now, obviously I take lots of pictures of people in the studio. So babies, newborns, you know, particularly suited to this particular section that we're going to do today, because in spite of the fact that most people think that babies have smooth skin, they don't. And they've got very flaky skin, and it needs a lot of work doing to it quite often. So this is really going to help. So a couple of things that we can do is, so with this action that I've done, I've run it, it creates 2 layers, which is a screen for lighten and a multiply layer. They're both masked. So we click on the black mask with a white brush, and I have the opacity, I press B for brush, I have the opacity of the brush at around about 10%, 8, 9, 10%, something like that. And what we can do with that is we can lighten and darken certain parts of the face. Now, this is a particularly nicely done shot. There's really nothing wrong with it. I just want to give you an example of what we can do so that we can, you know, make things, oops, press the darken. So we could lighten the skin a little bit there. Yeah, we can just see the difference that it's making. It doesn't do color shift or anything like that, but it does a really, really good job. And a lot of beauty retouchers, what they like to do, for example, in with the faces of the ladies they photograph, They give a little bit more of a Cupid's bow here by darkening that a little bit in the middle and then lightening it. Click on the black one there, lightening it there. And if we turn the group on and off, we can see the effect that it creates. So go back a little bit, it makes a little bit of a difference, which could be quite nice. We can always reduce the opacity if we want, and you know, just smooth the edges over here. But something else that you can do, if you're in this particular layer in the mask, you can go into the mask to smooth it out. You can go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and you can blur the effect of the mask. So if I was to click that on or off, we should be able to see it. So I can't get it going. Okay. So you can see, you can just about make out something there which I've added, and it's been blurred out now in comparison to what it was before. Okay. So that's the dodge and burn layer. If you have any questions, please do ask. It's just a way of lightening and darkening things in a really nice way. So if you wanted to add a bit more punch to the picture, you can perhaps lighten some of the hair. Now, the one thing I would do to this particular picture, one of the things I showed last week was what we can do to evaluate which part of the picture is more prominent. And what you can do is press the R for rotate button, spin it around, and then ask yourself, where does my eye go to? Now, she's got a lovely face, but her eyes are going up here, aren't they? So what we can do, I'll press escape, enter my key, is darken the hands down somewhat. So B for brush, and we can darken it down. I'll just push the opacity of that so it's a bit quicker. Yeah. So we can darken the hands down, or alternatively, we can vignette it. Now, this is something else that I covered last week. It's always best to try and hide the hands as much as possible. One of the ways in which we can do that, now I can't see myself in the picture, but one of the ways in which we can do that is by, instead of having the hands flat to the camera, which is pretty much as this girl's got it here, she's got her hands like crossed over like that, try and rotate them so that we can see the profile of the hand, see the narrow side of the hand and the pinky side of the hand, yeah, on the little finger side. So she could have had it like that, just raise them. So instead of being flat like this, turn them like that, and there's less of them to reflect light. So what I would do in this particular case, I'd put a new layer. Now notice I've gone down to the background layer. I press Command J to make a new layer. Command J. Oh, I've got it there, background copy, that's it. And then I would go into Camera Raw Filter. So you can go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Now I've used this so much that I just press the shortcut, which is Command Shift A or Control Shift A on a PC, and it puts on a new layer. But it takes into the Camera Raw Filter, which is just the same as a sort of a Lightroom scenario. The window looks pretty similar. Now, when I'm doing a vignette, I always shrink the picture because the vignette becomes a lot more apparent when it's a smaller window. Hopefully you can see that. Please let me know if you can't see the Camera Raw window. Are we okay with that? Let me just do stop share and share screen again. It's that Camera Raw. Okay, hopefully you should be able to see that.
Yeah, we can see that, Fanny.
Okay, lovely. So now we go into the radial filter, which is this last thing here. Okay, and I put the exposure down to 2 stops. Now, if you do this, now, by the way, well, there are a couple more settings that I'll show you. I'm going to press clear all. Now, if you're doing a vignette, now I did mention last week, and I made a bit of a, I didn't actually notice what I'd done. I'm working off of my laptop, which is what I do my previews on. Now, so when I convert my pictures, when I show my clients, because I do instant viewings, I show the pictures straight after the shoot. I don't convert my raw files to 16-bit files, I convert them to 8-bit files. So this is set up to convert pictures to 8-bit, but it's best to work on a 16-bit file when you're doing vignetting because it stops banding, okay? So the way I have this set up, I have a feather of about 50 pixels. I have the effect on the outside, which means that whatever effect I create up here, which is exposure of -2 stops, is going to be gradually fading to 2 stops under as it goes away from the area that I select. So I do this, and we can see now where the vignette is having effect. So I want to keep the light on her face, but I want her hands to darken. I have a suspicion that her hands have been darkened a little bit. My wife's just bringing me a cup of tea and a glass of water, which is really good. So I can now see exactly where I want that vignette to take place. And it will save me a lot of time in dodging and burning. So I keep it over her face. I can narrow it or make it smaller. I can also, if I have it as an oval shape, I can rotate it. Okay. So this is how I would do it. Could do a bit of a rotation, put it up here, and I say, okay. And because I put it, screen sharing, stop, window close. Okay, so I will now share screen and go to Photoshop, share. Now, because I put it on the background copy layer, you can see it's gone really dark down there now. Yeah, that's the effect that we've created. What I can do now is mask it, okay? Now, masking is brilliant because you can do things and you can either step back or return to what you had originally simply by pressing the X button on the brush. So if I press the Japanese flag, which is this little symbol down here, click on that, go to background copy, so it's a mask. If I have a black brush now, I can put, so I'm on B for brush, I can either press X, so X turns it from black to white. So if I do white, it's not going to have an effect on this. If I do black, it's going to take it away. So I can actually, if my opacity, for example, is at 50%, I can reduce the amount of vignetting down there on her hands. Yeah? Okay. Now, as I say, I think there's been a little bit of work already done on the hands here. So I'd have to be careful as to how much I did it. But then I can see the amount of vignetting that I've created on this picture, and I can adjust it accordingly. But that certainly is drawing my eyes away from her hands and more towards her face. Okay, so that's that. Personally, I think this is, as I said, a lovely picture. I would actually do things a bit differently. I'd probably crop it horizontally. Okay, now if you're cropping and you've got Photoshop CC, I'm going to do an 8:6 crop. Hopefully you'd all know about the content-aware crop. I'll go away from that and see for crop. Maybe because I'm working on a file down here. Do that, make it a bit bigger. Content-aware, I can't understand why it's not allowing me to do that. Maybe I'll flatten it and I'll try again. So let me just try flattening it. I do Command-Shift-E, got merge visible. I then do this, make it a little bit bigger to add a little bit extra to the size. Now I can click Content Aware. Now by doing that, when you press Content Aware crop, if I double click it, it looks at the colors nearest the edge of the frame and it fills it in without me having to do anything. So that's really quite useful. So there, my eye goes nowhere but to her face. Okay. So on this, what I would like to do is show you how I would do skin smoothing. Now, like many people, she's got a few chicken pox marks on her face. The majority of people, create a new layer, the majority of people go in there and use a patch tool, which is very, very good, to be honest. And you could get rid of it if she wanted to get rid of it. Okay, so with this sort of thing, oops, sorry, that's a mark on my screen. So if we do that, we can get rid of those things there. She may request it. Now, this is one of those things where you'd only do it with the prior approval of the client. Some people insist that you do remove them. Other people say, no, it's me, leave it as it is. If I was putting pictures into competition, in other words, they're for my own purposes, I would remove them. Because I'm not going to give the judges an opportunity to say, oh, what's that? Why didn't you get rid of it? I'd rather it's not there and they've got nothing to question. So I would be getting rid of these, okay? And it just makes the picture a lot more pleasant, okay? couple of little blemishes there, and quite possibly that's how this young lady would like to see herself as well. So that's something that you could do. Now, one of the other things I was going to talk about today was frequency separation. It's a term that I don't really like, but it's a retouching process that is really, really useful. So you've seen what I've done there. Okay, I've managed to get rid of the blemishes on her face. But something else that you could do is this thing, which is actually a little bit more, well, it's better. It's basically better. I'll run through it very quickly, and then I'll explain everything about it as we're going through. So I go into my actions, and I go into my frequency separation, where I've got to find it there. So we click on that. Now, the first thing that comes up is it says, in the following Gaussian blur dialog, choose a radius that blurs skin texture. The radius will be different for each image. Now, there's a reason for that. The reason why the blur is going to be different for each image is because we work on different sizes of files. So my camera might be 50 megapixels, the next person's might be 30 or 20 or 40 or whatever. So therefore, the amount of blur will vary depending on how many pixels we have. And also, it depends on the size of the face within the frame. So if the face is very big, you may need a different amount of blur to if the face was quite small, even if you're taking the picture from the same sensor. So that's why this varies from image to image. So if we say continue, what happens is the Gaussian blur dialog box comes up. It's preset to 8.5, which is about okay. But all you want to do is make sure that you can't see any of the blemishes that were there before. Okay, so I might put that to around about 10, 12, something like that. I think that's fine. I can't actually see any signs of the blemishes you have on the skin there. So I say okay to that. Okay, it says now done. Now just select areas in the LF layer, the low frequency layer, and use a Gaussian blur to smooth the skin. And I say continue. Now, all that might sound a little bit complicated and doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll explain. Basically, what this process does, it splits the picture into two levels. The top level, the one that says HF, the high frequency, is all the texture. Nothing else, it's just texture. The second layer, which says LF, the low frequency, is just the color. Okay, so basically it's split the picture in two, taken all the details put on the top layer, all the colors put in the bottom layer. A little analogy that I've used before is, imagine you're in an aeroplane looking down at the sea as you're flying over the sea. You can see the waves on the surface of the sea, and they're quite sharp. You can see the sun glistening off them, and you can make out that the waves are there. But beneath the waves is the sea floor. Now, obviously, we can't see that very clearly because it's all blurred and it's hundreds of feet further down. But if the sea floor's got sand on it, it's going to look light. If there are rocks there or seaweed or whatever, it's going to look dark. So even though we can see the ripples of the water on the surface, the texture, we can also see the colour beneath. So what we're doing effectively is we're taking the waves and putting them onto one layer, and then taking the colour of the sea floor and putting it on the bottom layer. And we can work on them separately. So what we try to do is to mimic the texture. So for example, there's an irregular wave that we don't really want there. Well, we can copy the wave texture from one area and paste it onto another area. And likewise, if we see that the sea floor, there's irregularities in it, we can blur it to smooth the effect from one area to the next. And that's exactly what we're doing. The high frequency deals with the waves. The low frequency deals with the colour and the tone. So if there are any questions about that, please ask now and I'll press on. Rebecca?
We don't seem to have anything yet.
Okay. Hopefully people get it. Okay. So I'll press on.
Sorry, we've just got one from Meg. I missed what Panicos did to create the frequency separation layers. Would you be able to just quickly flick through that one?
Yes, it's an action I can supply you with later. You can also download it off the web. Different places make it. They work slightly differently, but the principle is exactly the same. Okay, so basically, let me just dump that and I'll start again. So I will throw that in the bin. Okay, so I go to my action, which I can supply later. If you can give a donation, that'd be awesome. I just click on the action, frequency separation, and it says, it comes up with a little dialog box and it says, the following Gaussian blur dialog, so in the following Gaussian blur dialog, choose a radius that blurs the skin texture. The radius will be different for each image. I explained the difference between images and cameras and subjects already. So we click on that and we go to, I think we said about 10 or 12 or something like that on this particular picture, and we say okay. After that, it finishes the action, and the action gives us, it's grouped, high frequency, low frequency. I'll repeat again, high frequency is texture, low frequency is color or tone. Okay, so on the high frequency, now do make a note of this. Hang on, I'm just going to have some tea without burning. On the high frequency, we can use three things. Now, those of you who are taking notes, please make a note. It can be the patch tool, which is my preferred option, or the clone stamp, or the healing brush. Okay, three things. So all we're going to do is we're going to use patch tool, or clone stamp, or healing brush on the blemishes. That's what we're doing. Now, as I said, this picture taken by Gillian Summerall is lovely. It looks like it's been done really, really well already. So I'm going to show you how I would use this. I would go here with the patch tool, get rid of the blemishes. It actually does a really, really good job because it's basically copying the texture from where I am positioning the patch tool. Yeah, and it does a really fantastic job. Okay, it just takes your eye away from wherever the blemishes may have been. Okay.
Is frequency separation part of the CC package, or did you create it yourself? Les Lockwood asks.
You can create it yourself. I can run through it if you want to, but it's a bit long-winded. It probably confuse people. But we can do that.
Okay.
We can do that another. It's not part of the package, no.
Okay.
But people can just email me and I can supply it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Okay. So we can do this, and it's actually done a really, really good job. Okay. Now, the low frequency, it works really, really well with hotspots. Now, what we do, so we've said three things that we use for high frequency: patch tool, clone stamp, and the healing brush. Okay. Now, that's what we use there. If we go into low frequency, here we're dealing with the color and the tone. So remember, think of our analogy, the sea. Yeah. Now we're dealing with the sea floor. You know, there's little pebbles and rocks and things on the floor, on you know, light sand, and it doesn't look nice. We want to smooth it out. So what do? We get our lasso brush. We have a feather, again, depending on the size of the image. Okay. We have a degree of feather. So if it's if this lady's face was smaller, I'd be using less of a feather. If it was bigger, I'd be using more. Okay. And what we can do, I'll just pick an area just to show you what it does. So her chin looks a little bit bright here. So what I can do, I can lasso this. Okay. I go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay. And you pick a radius that works for that particular area. Now, just because, for example, 13, 14, 15 works here, doesn't mean if I use it somewhere else, it's going to need the same value. It may need more, it may need less. But what you can do is you can press preview. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so hopefully people can see. Okay. So, before, after, it's quite subtle actually. That's after, that's before. After, before. And what's actually happened here is that it's blurring the tone, the color on the underneath layer. so that it makes it a bit smoother. So what it's doing is it's making the shadowier bit, the darker bit here, a little bit brighter, and it's making the lighter bit here a little bit darker. So what it's doing, it's blurring it all, it's smoothing it all out together. Now, you've got to be careful, because if you overdo it, watch what happens. Yeah? So I've got it on a stupid amount of pixels. But if you overdo it, what's basically happening is it's picking up all the surrounding area, because I was just changing the amount of blur. It's picking up all the surrounding area and blurring it all together and making that darker. So you've got to be careful how much you apply. You know, just put in as much as you need to get the desired effect. Now, the beauty of this is that, I'll zoom in one little bit more. We're on 300% already. There's not too much detail there. But what is actually happening is that the texture is unaffected. It's exactly the same. All we're doing is changing the color underneath. Hopefully, that helps you understand exactly what this is doing. Now, this works really, really well when you've got hot spots on people's skin, especially with darker skinned people, and we've got the lights on them, and they're reflecting a little bit. And we think, oh, how do I get rid of the hot spot? But if you lasso the whole area, especially, you know, if you've got an Afro-Caribbean gentleman that's got no hair and you've got a light shining from behind him, you're going to get a hot spot. So how do you get rid of it? This can really, really help. Okay? So we just say okay to that. Now, I'm not saying that this particular young lady needs it. She doesn't, honestly. She is, you know, she's got excellent skin and it's been particularly well retouched, I think. But we get an idea as to what it can do. Okay? So if I was to just for an example again, I'll lasso here, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, you can just see the effect there. I'll just go before and after, before and after. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah?
Yeah, we can do.
Good. Okay, so just to recap, high frequency, blemishes. So I've just found a blemish here. So I'm going to go there, lasso that with a patch tool, move it away. Now, if I make a mistake, if I go to the low frequency and I go with a patch tool, it sort of goes, oh, it does nothing. Or if I go to the high frequency and I lasso it and then go filter Gaussian blur, well, it's completely smoothed it out. I've done it wrong, okay? So you've got to remember which tool you use and where. So hopefully people remember that. Make notes. High frequency, patch tool, healing brush, clone stamp. Low frequency, lasso with the right amount of feather, and then Gaussian blur. Okay? So hopefully people have got that.
Perfect. We've just got one more question,
Yes.
at the moment. This is from Nikki Goodeve. Do the settings within Photoshop always default to how you last used it, or does it refer to that 8.5 editing we see on your screen?
Okay, I think it's probably going to come to 8.5 every time, and you just adjust it to taste.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, one other thing, okay, on that note, when you're dealing with the low frequency thing that we were saying, if I'm going to go there just a minute, perhaps we're going to get rid of that little blemish there. Okay. Now, if I go here, alpha lasso, and I happen to pick her cheek, there's nothing wrong with it, I'm just doing it as an example. And I go, what's it, is it? I go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, okay? And it's done whatever it's done there. I can go before and after, before and after. You can see it smooths it out, especially here, before and after, okay? If I'm happy with that, and I want to do the same thing on the other side of the face, I can just lasso it. And to save me a bit of time, the last setting is here. So if it's going to be exactly the same amount of blur on this cheek as it was on the previous cheek, I can just go to filter and press the top line, which is the last filter that was used, or Command Shift F, and that will do the same thing. And a lot of people, once they've got the hang of this, and they just go Command Shift F, they can just lasso it and they can whiz through a picture really, really quickly. Yeah. So we can do that, and it's giving us the same amount there, and it's done. Okay. Now, something else about this. Sometimes people say, oh, let's see what effect that's made. I'll turn this layer on and off. Oh my God, what's going on there? And then, oh my God, what's going on there? Okay, so you do not turn these layers off, on and off individually. Okay, if you want to see the effect that the frequency separation action has had, you turn the eye on the top group on and off. So we can see what we've done there by smoothing the skin and removing the blemishes. If we step back a little bit, I mean, she's a gorgeous young lady, but it does make things look just that little bit smoother, a little bit more polished. Okay? Any more questions on that? Are we happy?
Yes, I think so. No more questions yet, Panikos,
Yeah?
thank you.
Okay, right, so that's that one. So we've got other pictures that have been sent in. Hang on. This is from Katie Hines. Now that's a tricky one. Hang on. We can deal with that. Hang on there. That one there. Okay. So this, I played around with this in the interim. Okay. So we started off with this. Okay. So this is the kind of thing that many of us do in our studios. So just a couple of things about this particular picture. So firstly, I know it takes guts. It is Katie. Just a minute. I just want to double check the names in case I've cocked anything up. Sorry. Okay. It is Katie. Sorry.
Katie Hines, is it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Yes. I still can't see it, but still. Yeah, Katie Hines, it is, yes. Hines with a DES at the end. Okay. So very, very typical of the kind of thing we do. But just a quick thing. Now, I notice you've got your light at the back, Katie, which is good. It's always nice to have a little bit of light to give us some separation from the background. And we notice that we're getting some light here on the little boy's face, which is great. I would suggest that it might be a little bit over, but only by a fraction, not too bad. Now, my suggestion is to have, now it could be that you have this light to illuminate your background, and I get that, okay? But it does cause a problem here because everything's going a bit dark. What I do in my studio is I have the background light pointing along the wall. In other words, towards, so this light will be pointing towards the wall behind my left shoulder. So it's pointing straight down the studio. Believe me, there is going to be enough light to fall onto his, the side of his head. It will work, but you will lose light over here. But hopefully the light that you've got to illuminate them will do things a little bit better. In actual fact, I'll show you, I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to have a whiteboard. Okay. So, whiteboard. So the way it works is, at the moment, this is the back wall. The softbox is pointing that way, so the light's going that way. The subjects are here, and I'm guessing the main light is over here. Now, what happens is, the majority of us will have the main light, so our camera is going to be here. Okay. The majority of us, and this is what I used to do, it's just the way we are, the way we're taught originally. We have this light here, pointing in this direction, so the light's going this way. Okay? And that's probably what you've seen in most tutorials, but that's not so great. If you want to avoid hotspots, even out the background, what you do is you turn this way. So what we do is we have the light facing in this direction. So the light is actually pointing this way, okay? So these people here will be seeing a bit less light. So the way they were looking at it, if their heads were here, okay, when they're looking this way, before they could see the whole width of the softbox. Now they're seeing less than half of it, maybe a quarter of it. The result of that is you get softer light on here. So it means you're going to have to up your exposure, either boost the power a little bit more on this softbox, or open the aperture up on your camera, because there's going to be less light. Okay. Now, what you can do is you have that. Now, the benefit of this is the light from here. Oh, I've lost my pen. Where's the pen? Sounds quite like amazing. Oh dear. No. Oh dear. I've lost it. Clear. Oh. I can't find my pen. Anybody help me how to get a pen back again, please?
Let's have a look.
Oh, I don't know how to get text. No, I don't want text. Select stamp. No, oh no, I've done it wrong.
Oh
no! No, right, okay. I'm going to close it.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to start again, hopefully. Screen share, whiteboard, there. Ah, there we go. Okay, it's back.
There we are. Fabulous.
So what we do, now the light from here is coming across here. Okay, think of a snooker ball. It's coming this way, it's bouncing back. But it's also going to fill in this area as well. And this light is going to point in this direction, going along the wall of the studio. But there's enough light spilling to give a nice bit of separation onto the back of the heads over here. So it gives a bit of depth to the picture. So that should smooth out the background a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more space to work with, because if I look at the way that, that Nikki has actually positioned her customers, sorry, Katie, the way she's positioned her clients, they're a little bit over to this side, yeah? They're pushed over that way, okay? So I'm gonna stop share and I'm gonna go back onto Photoshop, okay? And you'll see what I mean. So here, the boys are a little bit to the right. On the other picture, same family, because of the softbox there, they're pushed over to the right and they're squashed up a little bit there. By turning this around, pointing down, you've got a little bit more space to work with, okay? So, what I did here is I took all these things away and got to, bear with me, got to hit here, okay? And the way I did it, I'll show you very, very quickly. Patch tool. So actually, there's a couple of things. You can use a patch tool or content aware fill. So I've got the lasso selected at the moment. If I do this, and I right click, I put fill. Now there's options here. You can fill with black, 50% gray, white, foreground color, background color, a particular color, pattern, history, or this. This is magic, content aware, okay? So what that's doing is it's looking at the surrounding pixels, left, right, above, below, and blending them into the area you've selected. So I click on content aware, say okay, give it a couple of seconds, hey presto. A couple more seconds while I'm having my tea.
We've got a quick question, Panikos. Is the frequency separation only for skin, or can it be used on hair as well?
You can use it on hair.
Fabulous.
Let's hit that. Okay. Frequency separation. High frequency. Let's see what it does. Patch tool. I select that. Bang. Yeah. I would do a little bit at a time. I'd probably, in fact, instead of using the patch tool, what I'd probably do here is the clone stamp. So S for stamp. And because of the shape of the hair, okay, I'd probably sample from here, and because there's a little highlight here, isn't there, of light, yeah. I'd sample from there and go horizontally and brush it in, and then I'd come from over here and brush it, from there, brush it in, yeah, and from here, brush it in. Yeah, I don't know, that's not too shabby, is it? So from there, we've gone to there. Yeah, there's other ways of doing it as well, of course. You could, of course, if you wanted to, because of the shape of the hair, you could lasso this area. In fact, let's give it a try. Come on then, let's give it a try. Lasso this area. No, lasso this area. okay? Copy, paste, goes Command C, Command T, Command V, Command T, transform, flip horizontal, and put it here, double click. No, it doesn't work. Oh no, it's because it's on there. Okay. Actually, that's not too, yeah, it has worked. It's just that it puts on a separate layer, and then you just got to blend the layers and it works. So any way that you can copy and paste things, you can do it, yeah? So patch tool, clone stamp and all that sort of stuff, you can do that. And what I did, I copied, pasted, flipped, and then put it on top, and it keeps the shape of the hair looking the same. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Okay, so back to this one here. Okay, again, to fill this in, I just go around here, right click, fill. It was on content aware from before. I click OK, give it a few seconds, and it will make it disappear. And you can also do content aware crop, which we're going to use right now, because the boys are right down the bottom of the frame. I'd like to have them central. Okay, and after I've done that, that's when I start doing my retouching. So I click that. Now, the reason why I've got these things here is because silly me left the pixels at 25%. So I'm going to Command Z that a couple of times. Okay, click away, put that to 0, and then lasso it again. And then I won't have those problems right in the corners of the frame. Okay, so that's much better. So then I would go C for crop. I'm on a 9:6 ratio. I would centralize them. But again, by having the content aware box at the top ticked, I'm able to fill in this white area with the adjacent pixels, and it's going to do a pretty good job of it as well. Double click, and then it's going to fill that in again. Okay, so that's done a pretty good job there. Now, again, this happens to me as well, by the way. This is not, unique to just what Katie's done. What happens here is we've got this dark area behind where the softbox was. So the way I would get rid of it is I would probably, there are umpteen ways. If you want a clean white background, I could do that if somebody requests it. If you want me to show you how you would just keep the same sort of tone that's there, I would lasso this area. I would copy it, I would paste it. So I've done Command T, Command C, Command V to paste, Command T to transform, right click, flip horizontal, take it, put it over there, double click, mask it, a Japanese flag, B for brush, black brush, erase it over the boys, 100%. And hey presto, we've got a better looking backdrop straight away. We've just got to make sure that we've got nothing nothing on them that the boys have got. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is where I would start working on the picture. Okay, so it's quite a nice shot. Okay, I'll just show you a couple of things that we could do with this. One of the things I was going to show was something that a lot of people inquire about bags under the eyes, or now they haven't got bags, but I'm just going to show you what you can do. Okay. So first thing you do is Command J, new layer. Then our patch tool, J. Okay. So you press J on the keyboard, it goes straight to the patch tool up here. So what we would do, now as I said, young boys aren't the greatest example of getting rid of bags under eyes, they don't have any. But this is what you do. You select the dark area under the eyes. You go to a bit of light skin and you sample it from there. Looks rubbish, don't worry. We do the other eye, exactly the same, up there. Now, what we do is we go to the blending mode. Instead of normal, we select lighten. Okay, so now they're completely gone. Looks unnatural. So what we do is we now drop the opacity to around, the starting point's about 35%, okay? And that's what it does. So what we're doing is we're putting in the skin from the same person, and now you can select it from maybe under the cheek, under here, or from the forehead, wherever you've got a clean bit of skin. Something can be the neck, the shoulder, doesn't matter. But the person's skin is the person's skin. And it has the same texture, the same color characteristics, the same amount of noise that you get on that whole person, okay? And it makes it in such a way without, you know, overdoing it or underdoing it with dodging and burning or something like that, okay? And it works really, really well. So we can do that because we've got it set up on this layer, 35% light and blend mode. We can just do this over here and do exactly the same thing. Okay, so if I take it before and after, you can see it's done a pretty good job. Okay, so any questions about that? Would anybody like me to go over that again?
I haven't got anything at the moment, Penny. I've got one question in regards to the softbox.
Yes.
In turning the softbox down the length of the room, are you intending to bounce it back in from something behind?
No. No. So hang on a minute. So because I'm in my studio, okay, I'm going to turn my thing around. That's the corner of my room. That's how I have things set up in my studio with grids on it. Because all I want is a tiny amount of light. All I want is a tiny amount of light coming on the side of the face, just to separate them off the background. You just want to kiss. In fact, this is great, to be honest. I mean, it's been really, really nicely controlled. So well done, Katie, for that. It's really good. But it will give you a little bit more working room by turning your light the other way, and you've got more, you can position your clients more centrally on your backdrop. Yeah? Okay? You really don't need a lot of light coming through, and it's easy enough to adjust it. Just get somebody and get them to sit in that place, and then you can do it like that. Okay? So that's one thing. Now, imagine now that we've got a little bit of a hot spot. So we've done this, okay? So we know how to get rid of bags. Now, this also works with wrinkles, so crow's feet, as you know, ladies often call them crow's feet on the sides of the eyes. I call them laughter lines, just to be a little bit more respectful. So if you do the same thing, you just, you know, grab hold of the crow's feet or whatever you want to call them around here, patch them onto the forehead, it works great. Now again, in fact, let me see if I've got anybody that I can think of recently. Okay. So here's a little fellow I photographed recently. Okay. So you can see I've got lights coming from behind on both sides. It gives a bit of depth, possibly a little bit overdone here. I could get rid of that with dodging and burning, but just to show what can be done, okay, if I want to get a little bit more skin texture in here, this is what you can do. I was going to say, let's go to this picture, oops, sorry, this picture, and we can do it here, but there's no point. It's probably easier to see on this one. Okay, so this is what we do. We can create a new layer. Come on, Jay. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Then I can select, again with the patch tool, that area there and patch it to here. Okay. This time I want to darken it. I don't want to lighten it. So what I do is I click there, darken blend mode. And again, I put my opacity starting point around 35%. So what I've done, I've added a little bit of skin texture from here onto there. I've softened it and your eye isn't drawn to it, okay? Now, if somebody says the hotspots here are too bright, I do exactly the same thing. And here. And it doesn't matter where you go as long as it's a bit darker. and it just takes the hot spots away. Yeah? Okay? So hopefully people get it. So it's the same thing. We patch it to a darker area to get rid of hotspots, and then you can go to a lighter area to get rid of bags under the eyes, crow's feet, wrinkles, laughter lines, whatever you want to call it. Is that okay? Are we all right for questions?
We are at the moment, yes. I'll just let you know, Penny, that it's just past 10 to 23.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to dump this. I'm just going to backtrack a second, and I'm going to go back into frequency separation on this particular thing. Okay. So I'm going to go down here, frequency separation, continue. I'm going to go up to, oh, too much. There. Okay. Continue. So here, low frequency, alpha lasso. If I sample this area here, it's a little bit irregular. Okay. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I can select the amount. Okay. I've gone heavier on that. Say, okay, deselect, before, after. Right, hopefully this gives you a better idea as to what the low frequency can do. Now, I've made a mistake because I didn't feather the lasso, and I can see the edge of it ever so faintly. But you get my idea about being able to smooth out the tone across the forehead. Yeah, it looks much, much nicer this way. Remember the analogy that we made about the sea? It's the sea floor, it's the color, it's the tone at the bottom of the sea, whether it's sand or dark rocks or anything like that. What we're doing is just smoothing it. We're making it much more pleasant to watch. And I guarantee you, the majority of the beauty retouching that you see on Instagram, online, in magazines, on Vogue and all this sort of stuff, to some degree or another, they use frequency separation to smooth out the tones across a model's skin. Okay, so that's that. Now, there was something else that I wanted to cover, and that is double chins, something that a lot of people mention. Now, I've got to find somebody, hopefully they'll never get to see me talking about this. Bear with me just a second. Okay, one second. I have got a candidate, but I'm just double checking that I've got the right picture to use. No. Okay. Sorry, I'm wasting time a little bit here, but I'll make up for it, don't worry. No, oh my goodness me.
Has anybody got any questions for Penny whilst he's finding a picture for us? Just pop them in the Q&A section and we can run through them.
I should have had this from before, shouldn't I?
Blue Peter style.
Oh no. I think I've got one. I think I've got one.
Fabulous.
Hang on. Okay. Oh, this one will do. Okay. Okay. So, what we can do, this is to get rid of double chins, okay? So, to be honest, this isn't too bad, but it's the principle that counts. Again, what we're going to do is this. We'll put a new layer just so we can see what we're doing. And this is how it works. Basically, hopefully everybody knows what liquefy is. The thing with liquefy is, so for example, it's command. Okay, this is the liquefy window. Okay, we can zoom in and we can do what we need to do. We can have it on the forward warp tool and we can push things up a little bit and you can make things a bit better, but you're never sure how much you've done and it's a bit hit and miss. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that. But what we can do is with the lasso tool, we select an area that would need sorting. So I've just selected the chin and under the neck, okay? We copy it, Command C, paste it, Command V, and transform it, Command T. I now, once again, select warp. I then take the underneath of the neck and I push it upwards, okay? I push it upwards. And then I press return. So it's gone from that to that. Obviously, underneath her lips here looks wrong. So what do? We mask it. It's a Japanese flag down here. Press that. B for brush, black brush on 100%. Make it smaller. And we raise it right up to where her chin line would be. Okay. And you can see it's like the chin's just been drawn up a little bit. Obviously, the only thing that you can do is be very, very careful around the edges here, okay? So that you don't have any lines left over. So the kind of thing you can do is just have that left over with the brush, just soften the edges. So all I've done here is I've switched off the eyes on the layers beneath what I've copied and pasted. And I can see how much I've actually done there. So I can just soften the edges so that there's nothing too obvious if somebody's going to scrutinize it at pixel level. Okay? So you can see there that you can suck up the double chin and it will do a really, really good job. Obviously, you do have to be aware of hair, okay? And you can tidy that up in various ways, but that's one way that you can do double chins and it works really, really well, okay? Right, I'm going to try and find another quick example. Or should I go back? No, actually, no. Okay, here, just to let you know, I'm going to close that. And then this one. This was sent in by somebody else. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten the name. I'm going to check my emails to see who it was that sent it to me.
Is it Brian?
Brian, yes. Brian sent me this picture to have a look at. I mean, it's a great event picture. The trouble is when you're dealing with spotlights and heavy lights, you get this sort of thing, is it does burn things out. And the skin here is absolutely gone. Very, very difficult. It's going to be a complete rescue job to do it. And it doesn't sort of fit within the realms of the webinar that we're covering today. So I chose not to work on this picture. I mean, it's not that it's impossible, it's just very time consuming and very laborious and not something that the majority of us would benefit from. Okay, but thank you for sending it in, it's a great picture. Okay, that's that one. So I'm going to close that. Okay, this one. Okay, just while I'm on this picture, there's a couple of things I was going to suggest. When you're posing boys like this, or men in general, it's better to have the bottom foot behind the top foot. So don't have the foot poking out underneath. So the boy with the white t-shirt, his foot that's at the bottom, I don't know what's that, it's the right leg, the right foot should be behind. Yeah, it looks better that way. And his arm stretched out a little bit further along here, that would also be great. This one. Okay, some other points that would help. Shoes. Try and get them to take the shoes off at all costs. And the way the mum's got her legs crossed is nice. If there was a bit of an angle and the feet were coming across this way, it would have made it even better. And the same with dad. If this leg was behind this leg and they were tapped around here, that would have been better. We could have had the little boy maybe kneeling down with his elbow on dad's knee or something like that. That would have been great. Mum's hand on here, or perhaps around the other boy's shoulder, would have shown a little bit more connection. But I think this actually is not too bad an image at all. Hopefully they've loved it and got a nice big picture. The couple of other things that I noticed on this. obviously we can get rid of this quite easily with the patch tool, or if you want to go into frequency separation, you can get rid of that with using frequency separation. Mum looks great. Bear in mind when you're lighting from one side, I know in a small studio, I've been there, don't get me wrong, I understand exactly what it's like. Make sure that the light is, or do your best so that the light is coming into the face from the parting side. So there's a bit of shadow cast against her hair. If she had dark hair, this eye would have been virtually invisible, it would have been very, very black. So, or just get them to push their hair back a little bit so we can get light coming in the face. And that would be really, really nice.
We have got a question in regards to a tiny studio, if you wouldn't mind answering.
Yeah, go for it.
Mark at it, and she can't put the lights at the back because she has a very tiny studio. Do you have any suggestions how to position her 4 lights? It's also very dark.
Okay. Sorry, how to position her 4 lights? Is that in the Q&A?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It reads, I have a tiny studio, can't put lights at the back. Any suggestions how to position my 4 lights? It's also very dark.
Okay. One of the options is that you could possibly shine a light into the top corner, like going into the corner of the studio, and that will bounce back and just give a soft amount of light reflecting back. That's an option. But obviously it's going to have to be narrowed quite a bit, maybe in a snoot or something like that. So it's angled into the studio and it bounces back. That's one possible scenario. Well, I'll tell you one thing I did, what I used to do before I had all the lights that I've got now, was I used to use a speed light because they're pretty small and you can position them pretty much anywhere. And so what I did, I used to have, I put a little shelf. In fact, I've done that at people's houses. I would actually put a little shelf on the wall, actually on top of their sideboard or something like that, and put the speed light up there and have it pointing downwards, and that you could use that. That's an option. And speed lights, I'm sure most of us have got 1 or 2. If it's possible to sync it in as a slave to the other lights that we use, it would work. That is an option. Yeah, I've only just noticed. I've just noticed the other questions. Les Lockwood, what's the Japanese hand on a PC? It's not a thing. The Japanese flag is the mask button at the bottom of the Photoshop panel, right down the bottom, at the bottom of the layers panel. You just create a mask. Okay, so that's Les's question. Could you do that again, please? Selection, copy, paste. Yes. So to select, copy, paste, I'll minimize that. To select, copy, paste, what you do is you make a selection. That's it. So alpha lasso, you make a selection. Okay. You can go select. Is it copy? No. Doesn't have it. No. It's just Command C. Command or Control C. So on a Mac it's Command C. On a PC it's Control C. And you just do that and it copies it. And then Command V is paste. Yeah. And then Command T is transform, and you can move it around. Okay. But honestly, once you start doing that, it becomes rather second nature. Copy, paste, transform. And it's a fantastic way of doing things, you know, like hair, replacing hair, for example, as you saw in the first example. I know we're in frequency separation, but if I flatten that and alpha lasso, if I copy this, okay, copy shape, and I press Command C, copy, is it edit copy? It is edit copy, isn't it? Edit.
It says, yeah.
Okay, it's edit copy. Sorry, because I always use the buttons, I forget where it is. So it's edit copy, yeah, edit paste, and then Crikey, I don't even know where it is. I just use the buttons all the time.
Edit adjustments,
Is it
transform.
edit? No, is it edit? Edit
Oh, it's down there.
down there, transform.
Yeah.
There you go. Believe me, it's way easier to
I totally agree. I think some people, it's a Marmite kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You either
So
get
Command
used to
C,
the,
Command V, Command T, right click.
yeah, makes
then
it so
flip
much quicker.
horizontal. There you go. You put it there, double click, and then, so Les Lockwood, Japanese flag, which is down the bottom of the layers panel. Hopefully, can you see that on your screens? Because I can't see.
We can't quite see at the bottom. So if you were to bring it up a little bit.
Well, I've got it full screen.
The zoom panel seems to cut the bottom a little bit off.
Let me just, right.
Right, let's have a look.
No, I can't see it.
If you go back to how it was, you should be able to drag your little panel, the layers panel, away from it.
Okay. Is that better?
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Yep. So there, we press on that. Okay, it creates that. Now, this is a regular mask, but you can have an inverted mask. So with a mask, if it's a white mask and you use it in conjunction with the brush tool. Okay, so whenever you get a white box like this, it's a mask. So if you put a black brush on a white mask, it will erase what's there. Okay, so now if I press B for brush, it's on a black brush, opacity is 100%. There it is. I can erase the edges. Okay, so all I've done there, I've taken the eye off the background, so the background is now invisible. Okay, and I can do this. Okay, right. So I would erase that, and there's the hair, and it's reasonably good. Okay, and then the benefit of that is that you can change the opacity of that so that you can just have as much of it or as little of it as you want within the frame. Okay, the other option of that, if I go back a couple of layers, a couple of steps. Right, if I click on the mask and either now press Command I or Control I, it inverts it, turns into a black mask. So now it's not there. And with the brush, if I go with a white brush, so I press X when I'm on the brush, I press X, it turns that around. If I go with a white brush, I am allowing what I've copied and pasted to be visible by painting it in, as opposed to painting it away. Yeah. So if I do that, you can only see what I'm brushing in here. Okay, but I'm brushing it in when I've got an inverted mask. Okay, and that's actually what we do in the dodge and burn action. What we do is we create a screen layer and a multiply layer. The screen lightens things, the multiply layer darkens things. We then invert the mask so it's invisible, and we apply 10% at a time because our brush is at 10% opacity as we're putting it back in. So we're lightening things or darkening things progressively, and we can see them as we're going along in the dodge and burn action. Yeah? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fabulous. We've got one more question. Sometimes when I crop a picture in Photoshop, I lose quality of the picture. Any ideas why?
Yes. Okay, let me just, hold on. Okay. Right, any ideas why? I have some ideas why. So, C for crop. So when you crop something, you have the option okay, when you've got resolution here, okay, if I go 6:9, right, it could be that you've set I don't know why I've chosen centimetres. Sorry. Sorry, just 1 second. I don't like centimetres. I like inches. Okay. It's still centimetres, it doesn't matter. It could be that you've got your pixels set in here. Yeah? And it might be, for example, set at 72. So if I was to select a particular size, okay, and I crop that now, I double click in there, it's made it really, really small. You can see that's awfully pixelated. Okay, so what I do not crop with resolution. I just leave it on ratio. Okay, that way you just select. So I want it as a 9:6 or a 6:4 or whatever. I'm going to go back a step because it was. Okay. So if I crop it now, I just cropped in a little bit. Okay, if I see the dimensions, it's still pretty big. Okay, does that make sense?
Please. It does. Yeah.
Let me just see. Open, answer. Okay. So just make sure you don't have the resolution set when you're cropping, especially not at 72 dpi, which is screen resolution, which is not what you want. You always want to leave the resolution untouched until you actually either size it for the web or for print, or whatever size print you're going to be making, or digital files as you supply them or something like that. Okay. Right. Have we got any other questions? So hopefully, Lisa, Dickin, you've got your selection copy paste answered. The Japanese flag we've answered. Sometimes when I crop the picture in Photoshop, I lose quality in the pic and it is white. That's the question we just answered. Marquetta, I have a tiny studio, can't put lights at the back. Yeah, we've done that. Turn the softbox length of the room. Yeah, we've covered that. Katie Bull, married now. What?
Katie Hines, who we thought was Hines, is Katie Butler. She is married now.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Well, that's your email address, Katie. Okay.
I think that's everything for questions at Pancos. Does anybody have any more?
That's it. I think we're there. So, Kieran, thank you for joining us. Very, very good to hear from you again. So we saw that the frequency separation can be used on hair. We saw that from Nicky Goody. Yeah, we've actually answered quite a few of them, haven't we?
We have. You've done a very good job.
Excellent.
Oh, we've got one more just popped in. When cropping and checking the size of the crop, do you ever change it from automatic to anything else in the resample tick box?
Say that again.
When cropping and checking the size of the crop, do you ever change it from automatic to anything else in the resample tick box?
Resample tick box. Ah, what, here? Is that what they mean? Right, okay. Now, okay, I get the question. Right. Okay. So, if I'm cropping this now, so when you resample it, okay. Right, so let's start from the top. So when what I've just pressed, by the way, on a Mac, it's Command-Alt-I. It's the information on the file, or Control-Shift-I, I think, on a PC. I'm not 100% sure. So what happens is, this is giving me the information. So what I tend to do, I work on my files at full size. So whatever the size of my camera is, I work on it full size. I do my editing at full size, and then I will resize it. Once I've finished that, I keep it as a PSD file, personally. Some people as a TIFF, no problem, but not as a JPEG. I want it as a 16-bit, and then I keep it. But then when I come to the final output, which means either I sell it as a digital file or I'm going to do it as a 7.5, a 10.8, a 2016, 3020, whatever, this is what we use. So I've got the ratio sorted. I know it's going to be, for example, a 30:20, okay? Well, no, let's say a 12:8 in this particular case. So if I now press 12, it's automatically cropped it to pretty much 8. If it's 1,000th of an inch out, doesn't matter, it's perfect. okay? Because that says resample there. I'll cancel that, and I'll redo it again. If I untick that, and I type in 12, what's happening is, it's using all the pixels and upping the resolution so that it fits within a 12-inch format, 12-inch size, okay? So if I'm sending it off to print, like each of us will know what our lab or our printer works at, okay? Some labs insist on a 305 pixels per inch resolution, so you'd size it for that for the smaller prints. Others would say 250 or 240. So depending on the size of the image that I'm going to produce, I will click resample. So here I will just print, my printer, I print at I actually print at 360, even though that's 300, and it will size it to that, and then I'll go to, I'll go to file print, yeah, and it will, is it file print or command P? Yeah, that's it. And then that will print directly onto whatever it is I want to print it. Hopefully that's answered the question, if I understood it correctly.
Yes, I think so. And then Caroline's come back with, sorry, Penny, if you keep the resample tick box ticked, do you ever change automatic in the drop-down box to anything else? To preserve the enlargement, for example, for higher quality?
I don't understand, so crop, just a minute. I don't understand what she means, I'm sorry.
Hold on. Caroline, I'm going to pop your mic on so that you can ask Penny in person, if that's okay. I'll just pop it on now. Are you there?
Is she there?
Are you there, Caroline? Caroline? Oh, no, it doesn't seem to be working.
I tell you what, I get her to give me a call later.
Okay.
Or email me.
Or I'll pop, yes, I'll pop your email address onto the chat. And then if anyone's got any questions.
See for crop and automatic. I don't understand where the automatic is. Is it down here? No. No, just get her to get in touch with me. We'll work it out. If I understand the question, I'll be able to answer it, I'm sure.
Yes, okie dokie.
Okay.
All right then, so it's 3:20 now, almost.
Is it?
So it is. Lord. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? So thank you very much, Panicos. I'll just let you all know what we have upcoming now. So tomorrow we've got Jo Bradley with a newborn critique. She's doing it live and it's an interactive session at 10 AM. And then at 2 PM we've got Street Photography to Documentary Project with John Bollerton. So if you'd like to join us for them, you just get registered on the website, which you're all familiar with now. And other than that, big thank you to you again, Penny, for a fantastic session.
Thank you, pleasure. It was lovely to speak to so many people, and thanks for the picture you sent in. Very nice.
Yes, fabulous. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okie dokie. That's everything then. Thank you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Lovely.
Take care.
You. Cheers now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.